Good morning. Hi, I'm Bob Pace. I'm your host for today's podcast of Fight with CPS with Bob Pace and how to get your children back. Sorry for a little bit of delay here. I had something that never has happened before. In fact, I'm seem to be having all kinds of computer glitches. I tried to sign on to my computer, but it wouldn't recognize my password, and after several times, it tells you to type in a code. I try to type in the code, it still doesn't work. So I had to reset my computer enough. So anyway, I apologize that I was late. I know my producer was talking to me and I'm trying to move in there. I want to welcome you all to probably a very unpleasant situation, which is now you're going to have to fight CPS. And that is not the most favorite spot to be in. What CPS is an organization that's supposed to protect our children from neglect and abuse. It's also supposed to do family reunification, and it hasn't been doing so. Also, I'm afraid that money has taken possession of doing a good job to protect our children. It seems like every case I've heard, and I've talked to over 500 people here for the last couple of months, different parts of the country, it is very common to hear this common thing is that when they investigate you, they immediately take your children because they're deemed to be endangered. Now, if there's extreme danger going on, they have the right to take the child. If the child is being thrown against the wall to shut up from crying, or parents using ancestral force, that's extreme danger. They need to be protected. But to have a parent charged with neglect because of their mother and father's personal belongings were stored at the house because they're going through the settlement of their parents who are dying, the kids weren't in extreme danger. That was where they've really gone too far. And that's what I was accused of. I've been in this before, but I was accused of child neglect, that I was alleged to endanger my children from my parents' furniture and boxes being stored at my house. And the only reason why they were there, not as a storage place, my parents were dying. They needed to sell their home, so I took all their belongings. And what further happened is that I had lost my job through no fault of my own. I couldn't afford a storage unit. So I used a house to sort things. I have a big house. But with all their belongings of what they've been married 55 years and my belongings, it looked cluttered. I know it looked cluttered. It was organized. There's walkways and things like that, but furniture was stacked on furniture, and my garage was full of it. My outside was full. I mean, I had a lot of things to go through there. But that's where they got me. That's where they said, "Oh, you're in extreme danger. Those boxes could fly upstairs and hurt the children. The chairs could walk up with their legs and hurt the children." It's ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And that's the one pet peeve I have with the child protection system, is that the social workers don't have the intelligence or the knowledge or the experience to deal with their children. And could be bad or good, because they need to recognize there's a lot of children being abused. Where are the CPS workers? Where are their investigations? So that's one of the pet peeves. I may be starting the show differently than I start other shows, but I try to make them differently. This show has many ways to interact with it. And I like to tell those ways so that you can participate. One way is to type in a comment. And the comment is usually about your CPS case. And then I can make a response or an answer. Now, another thing is that you can text me a comment about what you want me to answer you or help you with, because I have many years of dealing with the child protection system. CPS is awful, and it's taken me years to figure it out. And what I know now, if I knew it the first time, I would never have my children trafficking from me. Yes, I said the word trafficking. CPS does traffic children. And they try to do it legally. Any form of trafficking is illegal. It's against the law. But CPS does it and gets away with it. They'll take your child and put them right in the foster care system and get that money every month, that $20,000 per child per month. And so, with that being said, you have to be careful with them. They're a very, very dangerous entity. And I've heard nothing but bad stories from people. I want to welcome Rosemary Labardo. You've been on before. I will hope it's in your favor. If you, I was speaking to a girl from Florida yesterday evening, and she had a case Monday, and she wanted more time. And I said, well, you need to do a stay. You need to ask the court for more time if you're not ready. If you need to get an attorney, more facts in line. She said her public defender wasn't working for her, and they never do anyway. But I'm glad you're here, Rosemary. And I forgot the city and state you're in. Are you in New York? Because I've seen your name before. Now, besides texting in comments and working with the show that way, that's great. You can also call in. You can call in and talk live on the show at 626-698-6990. I'd love to have you talk about your case. It adds more flavor to the room, and also it helps me deal with other areas besides my own case. My own case was maybe the same. It gets boring after a while hearing it over and over. But please call in at 626-698-0990. And lastly, if you want to be on my show, I have 14 podcasts. And I have a producer who works very, very hard to help you get on the show. Her name is Grace, and she can be emailed at grace@vincentwdavis.com. That's grace@vincentwdavis.com. That's one way. That's one way there that you could be on the show live. And if you don't want to be your camera, that's fine too. But I'd love to have you on my show. We had someone lined up this morning, and for some reason it didn't work out. So I hope everyone's doing well. It's a long weekend for me. I got too much sun and too much walking around. I've been volunteering with that organization for 49 years. Anyway, I'd like to hear more about your case, Rosemary, and what city and state you're coming from. And by the way, I had a person from United Kingdom last night. I do have other countries. I've had several people from Australia, Canada, United Kingdom, Ghana, and Mexico, and Mozambique. And those are the places I have, and they have the same similar problems. I cannot believe how similar the cases are in England as they are in the United States. And that really, somehow the child protection system worldwide in the United States centers around the use of money. And I don't know, I mean, it's a lot of money. And it's a $38 billion business in the US. And it's the money that comes from the federal government. Now, I don't know where we get our money in the federal government. I mean, they just passed a bill for what, $95 billion to give to Ukraine and, who's fighting the war against Russia, and give it to Israel. And then they gave it to Taiwan. And I know the reason they give all this money is because they want it to be the bad elements not want to be here in the United States. But we have so many bad elements. It's like our border crossing. We have so much with an open border and no protection out there. Millions of people are coming in. They're taxing the system. I see them at the dependency court, and they're from another, country and so forth. But we seem to be helping them out with schooling and hospitals and food stamps, and they get a lot of the cases too of CPS. But I think CPS needs to be accounted for every dollar that they spend. They should be watched by a group of supervisors, or maybe a board of directors, and they should, quarterly meet or whenever they meet, and they should discuss and how the agency is doing. In Richmond, Kentucky, one girl was telling me, Faye, that they did an audit at the Richmond County CPS, and they found out that there was $389,000 missing. Now that's a lot of money. And my social worker that had my case talked about bonuses that they give her. And I'm talking about big money bonuses. Because every day she would have on a new clothing that she bought with her bonuses, eyelashes, eye makeup. She'd talk about her Gucci purse. Every week was a new purse, and her BMW car. And I know it wasn't just from her salary at CPS, it's from her bonus. Also, I've been finding out in my own case and other cases across the country that they lie. They arbitrarily will lie, and they're the ones supposed to be taking care of your children or helping protect your children. They have no shame about lying. But they're there. They're part of social services, and we have to deal with them. But long as we know what they can do and what they can't do. So I don't know if Rosemary's still here, but I'd like to know the city and state you're from. Anybody else that wants to write a comment, please do so. If you want to call in, that's the number 626-698-0990. Also, I want to thank Vincent W. Davis, who has his law firm, Vincent W. Davis and Associates, that produces this podcast. I'm glad we have it here. It's a forum. And it's very real. It's very live. and he is a family lawyer, and he says call in 888 and he'll help you. You just have to ask for help. But there's so many cases this week I've heard from my followers. They're making decisions, so I should hear some good news. Several weeks ago, one person told me how the things I told her helped her and helped her get her kids. I'm not an attorney, but I have a good, solid background and knowledge and work experience. And so I like to help you. I also know what you're feeling. It still hurts me because I lost all my three children. I lost one of them because of CPS's screw ups. Also, the worst nightmare is it takes money, and that's something none of us have, or at least I don't. It's so hard in my case. I don't have a cash flow, so I need to be paid daily in a small little job. But it's hard taking care of a family when it goes like 9 days and no payment. Now, I want to look at some things that I've been. mm, One of the things I found that's pretty noticeable is the allegations that are false most of the time. And I know that allegations against you can hurt you in a lot of ways. And we don't need the false allegations. I had false allegations against me made by lay people who were my in laws, who were white side of the family. And they made up stories that weren't true. See, that's the hard part. How this whole thing starts is somebody makes a phone call to it's usually the hotline for CPS for child abuse or neglect. In doing so, the information is taken down by the social workers, but their name is not, and they should have to sign their name if they're making allegations, because a lot of these people who do allegations are revengeful against a family member. Like a guy doesn't like the guy's dog barking. So he'll come out of the blue and call CPS and make allegations that aren't true. And that's what I'm talking about is wrong. Now, I do know in different parts of the country, there are pro bono CPS lawyers. And there are good ones. You just have to find them. That's the hard part. I will say that public defenders aren't your best means of helping you through the CPS office at all. They are brutal when you try to deal with them because they're not honest. They alienate your children from you as parents because they're trying to get full custody of your child. That's what they want, is full custody. Now, I know there's a lot of stories you read or hear about, and that's why we have CPS. I mean, there was a mother who left her child in a bouncy sitter. That's those devices where they sit straddled in and play with things in front of them. Well, the mother decided out of the blue to take a vacation and left her daughter alone in that bouncy sitter for 12 days. When she came back, it was horrid. She called him and says, "Why has my daughter died?" Now, see, to me, that is serious of case, but why did it go unnoticed for 12 days? I mean, that child suffered. When it starts to run out of water and food, it's suffering. And it's sad because when they found the child, it was horrid. And this was in Ohio. And again, where was CPS? They're out chasing somebody with some ridiculous accusations and make a federal court out of it. You know, they don't know how to separate the real from the fake, the real from the fake. In West Virginia, in Kiowa County, the CPS found a shed with children locked in it who had no access to water or a toilet. And the children were left to suffer at the hands of their adopted parents for months. For months now, until law enforcement officers eventually found the children locked in their house in the detached shade, deprived of food, water, and bathroom facility, hygiene products, and beds. And this was back in February 12th in West Virginia. And these children were found in the shed. Now, this is even further sad. CPS was aware of the children's condition in August of 23, but these children were found in February, so CPS ignored it. They had gone to the house to check on the kids. And I'm just trying to say, there's a lot of badness going on with CPS. Now, I mentioned CPS because I want to talk about all the acronyms. Because there's the Department of HHR, the DHHR, there's the DCS, there's all these different acronyms for children. So when I say CPS, I mean the Child Protection System. And in West Virginia, they failed to protect the foster children from physical and mental abuse. Now, I'm also talking about foster. The term foster is usually a pair of parents that take in a child. They'll give them the love and the food and the shelter, all the things that was missing. But in this particular case, they abused the children. And CPS was trying to cover it up. And I know that this case was driving attorneys crazy because they struggled for years to receive information from the state how it managed its foster care system. And that's the biggest problem. The CPS system sucks because they allow abuse to happen and then they abuse parents that didn't abuse their kids. They work at both angles. Now, it's so important when you're in this CPS case that you talk to a family lawyer. And there are a lot of family lawyers out there. And some of them do pro bono work, some of them charge low fees, some are reasonable. Now, the attorney that produces our podcasts is a family law attorney. His name is Mr. Vincent W. Davis. And he is very experienced in fighting child protection, CPS. And he's very experienced in getting your children back. Now, he offers a consultation, and I have it scrolling on the bottom of my window how you can make an appointment in his calendar. And he'll offer you 30 minutes for $60. That's roughly $2 a minute. And it'll be well worth you spending $60 because he'll be able to talk to you about the strategies of how to protect your children from CPS and how to get them back and how to fight CPS. I guess I can relate to my case because I held off getting an attorney. Talked in a moment there because, well, I thought the Child Protection Agency would be reasonable, decent people working for the government and they treat you fairly. They don't treat you fairly. I mean, they don't like older people. They don't like seniors. They don't like mothers and fathers. And they'll talk lies to you. They'll deceive you. I mean, it was so terrible with my involvement. Now, picking an attorney is a hard thing to do. You really should pick an attorney based on your financial needs because, you know, a high paying attorney isn't going to be just as good as a low paying. You got to do better than that. You need to go look at their background. And I suggest you first search family law attorneys. And they'll give you a list of them. And from that list, you go through them and pick out the ones that you feel, just based on what they say, would be a good choice. Then you pick out 10 of them. You write them down, the name and the phone number, anything special about them. Then after that, you want to narrow the list down from 10 to 5, so you want to call 5 of them. So you want to go looking through that list of 10 and see how many fought CPSs, how many got, children back, do they have references and those kinds of things. Well, I have an attorney right now that you could put in as one of your 5 callbacks. His name is Vincent W. Davis, and you can just call in to 888-6582 and say that you want to speak to him for a consultation for 30 minutes. And he'll do that. Now, since I've had 3 other people come back in here, since Rosemary Labardo, I have Alkane Fuyusuki. Yeah, the scrolling text says calendar. You're right. What you want to do is you want to place on that calendar the time you can talk to him for 30 minutes. That's how you get into his schedule. You just copy that link and you put it in there. And also, Alkane, I don't know what city or state you're calling from. Lovely. Hi there again. I think you've been on before. No grounds for removal other than the caseworker in a separate delinquency case was unable to do a home visit or reach me since my phone number changed. All the other professionals were aware. Oh, they're going to make excuses, lovely. I'm sorry about that. And she says further, she was not due to her not being present at the past 2 court hearings. So your social worker wasn't there. Again, lovely, what city and state you are? I have so far 3 people that have texted in, Rosemary, Kane, and Lovely, and I don't know where you're from. If you could tell me, that would be great. Also, you can be a little bit more specific with your question. I'll try to help you. Anyway, we're talking about that rule number 1 about getting an attorney. And Mr. Davis has also sued CPS in both civil suits and state suits. So he has won cases. So he's very experienced. So he's one of the 5 people that you want to call. And the other 4 people, you can just, from that list of 10, can identify 4 people that have the background in CPS and so forth. And when you talk to attorneys, it's important that you ask them, have they had a case against CPS? Have they won it? Do they have any references? And you have the right to ask that. Now, there are attorneys that are pro bono, or attorneys that are lower fees, and there's attorneys with higher fees. Okay, we have something came in from, looks like Lovely, I think. Denver. All right, Lovely. Denver, Colorado. Glad to have you aboard. Is there any specific question you'd like me to answer? Also, for any of you out there listening, you can call in at 626-698-0990. Another thing I'd like to tell you about what CPS to me is, it is like Alice in Wonderland. You found the rabbit hole and you don't know where you're going. All the doors answer to nothing. It is very complex. And that's what an attorney would do, is help you navigate through the complexities of CPS. That's what's important, to get an attorney together. Another thing about the CPS that I compare a CPS as a doctor does surgery for your heart. Let's say you need something wrong with your heart. You need a heart valve repaired or you need a stent put in or something like that. You're going to pay for a professional doctor to do the work on you. You're not going to use a layperson to do it. And you're certainly not going to get someone that is not a doctor in that field. Now, to be a doctor, you have to go medical school. And then after medical school, and by the way, a lot of people start out getting a 4-year degree and then they do their medical school next 4 years and an internship for 2 years. That's long before they become a doctor. But you get a professional to work on your heart. You need a professional to navigate and go through the system, the CPS system, because it's very corrupt, and you're going to get lost and eaten alive. Welcome. We got Vanna Lucy. Lucy, I'm sorry I'm bad with the names. And she says that she's focused on New York State with the Olinda County. And I'm fighting a double back-to-back CPS situation in 2 different counties. I feel like my situation not only a tough one, but extreme, unfair, and illegal. I'll believe that, Vanna Lois, because I know what I've gone through, and it was nightmare and a half. My social worker, as I said earlier today, was young, and she's only interested in money. She had no schooling, no bachelor of science, no college degree, and had not taken one social working class that deals with social work. She also said that she's a clinical psychiatrist. She didn't have a doctorate degree, and she could prescribe medicine because she could tell parents whether they have a mental problem or not. Now, that's really, I just don't know how CPS workers can stick their neck out for that, because that's an open lawsuit to sit there and make those kind of statements. Now, I'd like to hear more, Vanna Lois. If you want to talk my show, you can call it 626-698-0990. So you need to get an attorney, and I didn't, because I tried to fight CPS myself. I told you about my county CPS, Southern California. Well, the main director's office, where all this supervisor thing worked in, was the Taj Mahal of the building. It's a green building, looks like the Emerald City of Oz. And he was wearing so much gold around his neck, I thought he'd fall over. And everything I discussed with him or write to him, everything would go out one ear and go out and go out the other ear. He never got anything resolved on it. And he let the office get away with highway robbery. CPS was making it very difficult for us. And then when our children were taken to the foster care system, they started off at a shelter. That first night, they had to sleep in strange beds that was overcrowded. It was dirty and filthy of a place. The shelter right next to the courthouse. And on top of that, their play yard was attached to the juvenile prison center there. So they had exposure to juveniles that had committed crimes. And then if that wasn't bad enough, they had beehives with bees coming out and attacking the children. So it was a terrible experience for my kids to be put in the first night. They're supposed to protect your kids from abuse, but they're being abused. So I'm telling you, I thought I could fight for a year and a half, and I tried to. I got nowhere. And I had to get an attorney, so I got Mr. Davis. And he got back 2 of my 3 children. The one child, the girl, the social worker wanted to take revenge because she lost her case in court. And she told our daughter, who was in protective custody, that you need to divorce your parents, divorce your brothers and your sisters and all your siblings, and your grandparents. You need to divorce them. And I thought that, when I heard that, that was pretty sad because that poor mother, the parents of the child, they're being completely abused by CPS, completely abused. Now, as my children were put in that system, they moved from their shelter to staying with my staying with my sister's husband. But they thought it'd only be like 30 days at most, or maybe 2 months at most. The case for my case was 3 years. And so my wife's sister and husband couldn't take care of the kids anymore. So they went from being with a family member, which is that's the best way to have it with your kids, to be put in with the strangers who weren't her parents. Now we took them to court. It was a custody battle, but where she was trying to adopt our child, and we said no. And our attorney proved her she lied. The social worker lied. And with that being said, we it's open for a lawsuit. I didn't have money there to do a lawsuit, but they should have been paid a lot for that because they're so corrupt. It's just so bad. So anyway, they convinced my daughter to divorce us, her brothers, her family members, divorce her grandparents, change her name, seal up her birth certificate, so she was never born to us, and then be adopted by a family. So when that happened to us, the social worker threatened us, said that I will make sure you never see your daughter again. It all came true. It all came true. And so she's 21 now. At 12 years of age, she was told that, and she did it. But the social workers are the ones that did it. So it's a hard thing. It's a hard lesson to learn. Now, there's 2 other rules I always talk about in the show. One is the rule about taking notes. What I mean by that is that it's very important as each incident happens that you write down the incident. You want the date, the time, and the people involved with the incident, whether it was a coworker, there was social workers, children, parents, wherever it is. You list them. If you don't, if it's more than one, you can say two or whatever the case may be. But it's a notebook you want to keep. And after you put the names and the date and the time, then you're going to put down what the situation was. What was the situation was? And use a couple sentences and describe it. And then after that, um, because you're going to have your case maybe dragged on for years, and you need those notes. So after you write down the incident, you want to write down the outcome. Use lots of extra lines to give you plenty of room to come back later to write the comment and so forth. Use colors like pink and yellow are good colors to highlight things. Now, my third rule is very important because that's the rule where you're intermixing with the social workers or the police. Now, if they come to your home and you're outside and you see them, just be nice to them. If they say, we need to come to your home, you say no. And all you have to do after saying no is that I want my attorney to advise me. That way, they don't know whether you have one or not. They're most glad that you do, but don't worry about it. Don't make a big thing about it. And ask for the business card so he has their name and phone number so you can get back to them. It's really important because they will lie. They will say they aren't such and such. Now, besides saying no to them, you don't want to talk to them. It's either yes, no answers, very short. Because what you tell them, they may use that against you. Now, there's a little asterisk in rule number 3. I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but there's also medical trafficking happening. For example, if you're a mother and you're giving birth and they test you and you show up that you're positive with drugs, they're going to try to get CPS involved. But if they don't have a court order or a warrant, they will be able to search your home. That's why it's so important to have an attorney. They'll make your life better. Now, it may be late at night and you child is very sick and you know you need to take her to urgent care, but urgent care is closed, so you're going to take her to the hospital, to the emergency room. And that should be a real simple process. But the caseworker is going to try to take advantage. You don't have the knowledge, and they'll try to take the child from you on the spot without a court order. They use the police to do the same thing, and that's wrong too. They use police as the same thing. Um, so the caseworkers sometimes work in the hospital, and the doctor or nurse will go and tell them, "Oh, we have a person in here that just tested positive for drugs." So right away, they think it's extreme danger and they want to take the child. No, they can temporarily take the child if they get a court order, but that's not extreme danger because you test positive. Several mothers have been on the show that's had the same scenario, but one of the mothers said her baby was not tested positive. There's nothing wrong with him. So, um, what I would do if I'm in a birth room and have my child and these strangers want to walk in, including the policeman, I tell them, please wait out in the lobby unless they have a court order to search that room. And if they're going to try to arrest you, they got to arrest you on a charge. So this medical trafficking that's going on a lot lately is a no-no. They should not be taking your children from the hospital. There was one case not too long ago that a social worker and the police marched in and stole the child and still had birthing material on the child. And that's gross. A child needs to bond with their mother. And just because you tested positive for drugs, it could be a false test, it could be something else, but you can cure it. It's not the end of the world. Again, I'd like to remind everybody that if you want to interact with the podcast, it's just to text in. I've had several of you do so. Some of you need to still put your location. I don't have much time left for the phone call to get started here, but you can call in and so forth. So I've talked to you about the 3 rules. I've talked about how to be careful with them on there. I would like anybody that'd like to be a guest in the show to call back in later. I want you to continue to fight CPS and not give up. You need to get a good attorney to fight them. And you might be able to find a pro bono attorney or other attorneys that meet your financial needs. Now, I had to sell my house when I got Mr. Davis because he wanted a lot of money to get my kids back. And of course, I was pretty much maxed out with my first and second loan on the house. So I really couldn't work, couldn't pay him without doing a loan or sell my house. I had to sell because my loans were too much at the time. I am going to be on my show tonight at 7 o'clock. Again, tomorrow at 10, and then at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. That's all Pacific Standard Time. And I want you all to know that you can come on my show as many times as you want. You can phone call or in there or be my guest. It's important that you get an attorney and you follow those two other rules: the notebook, and not to talk to them, not to let them in your home, not to let them take your child at the hospital. They're doing that a lot lately, and you got to be careful. You have your civil and constitutional rights. You can read about them: the 14th Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment. There's things that pertain to your rights there. But what's happening is that CPS is abusing the system and taking all children in. And they shouldn't take all children in. It's very important that the only necessity or the extreme danger. I was just looking at, you see, where did I have it? Okay, let's talk about neglect. What are the four types of neglect? There's physical neglect. That's where a child's basic needs, such as food, clothing, shelter, are not met, and they aren't properly supervised or kept safe. They got to be supervised. Little children can't roam the streets. Another type of is educational neglect. They need to go to school. They need to get that education. Then there's three is called emotional neglect. And that's where they need a lot of love, a lot of hugging and so forth. And lastly, they need to see a doctor. It can be medical neglect. So it's really, really important that they have their medical up to date and so forth. They have to have access to doctors and things. Now, that was neglect. Now, I'm going to talk about abuse. There are physical abuses where the child's beat up, excessive corporal punishment. There's sexual abuse where the child is used either through prostitution or gratification by the parent. There's third abuse called emotional abuse. That's where they're constantly underneath a lot of stress. I mean, there's a lot of argument going on between the parents and so forth. Another abuse is neglect. They're not fed well, they're not taken care of, and so forth. Now, emotional abuse could be arguments, and that's bad too. So those are all abuses that you may encounter. Now, my time is up. I want to thank Lovely and Vena Lee there, and Akane Ifuzuku and Rosemary Lombardo for calling in. I want to God bless everybody, and please be safe and keep fighting for your children. This is Bob Pace, a sign off. I'll see you tonight at 7.